Venezuelan authorities have denounced the accusations of Colombian President Duque following the capture of 4 Venezuelan citizens implicated in acts to destabilize the country. The mayor of Rochester, New York, has suspended officers involved in the suffocation of Daniel Prude, a black man hooded and pinned to the ground by police. The president of Cyprus has denounced Turkey's aggressiveness and called for talks to resolve the ongoing dispute in the eastern Mediterranean. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South, and I'm Katrina Goss. We begin in Venezuela, where authorities have denounced the accusations of Colombian President Duque following the capture of 4 Venezuelan citizens implicated in acts to destabilize Venezuela. Venezuelan Vice President for Communications Jorge Rodriguez presented evidence directly linking the detainees to the failed mercenary incursion into Venezuela known as Operation Gideon, which was organized from Colombia in May this year. He recalled that the arrested citizens are fugitives from Venezuelan justice, a situation that the Venezuelan government has denounced since 2017. Rodriguez stressed that the Colombian government sheltered them and was aware of their training in paramilitary camps in Colombian territory. In response to the arrest, Colombian President Duque sought to completely twist the events, claiming that the detained Venezuelans were supported by the government of Nicolas Maduro and planning attacks on Colombian institutions. This Friday, Venezuelan political organizations will formalize the registration of candidates for the parliamentary elections to take place on December 6. Spokespeople for opposition parties have announced that they will register their respective candidates for the legislative elections just before the deadline established by the National Electoral Council. Prominent opposition leader Enrique Capriles, who previously stood against President Hugo Chavez, has called for opposition sectors to participate in the polls in order to bring change to the country. Capriles criticized the failed strategy of opposition lawmaker Juan Guaidó, who calls for sanctions and blockades against Venezuela and is now calling for abstention in the elections. And a radical sector of the Venezuelan opposition has decided to participate in the parliamentary elections on December 6. The decision represents a clear move by some sectors to distance themselves from US-sponsored opposition lawmaker Juan Guaidó, who supports the Trump administration's interventionist policy on Venezuela and deepens the divisions among several opposition figures. Our correspondent Madeline Garcia has the story.
The radical opposition that pushes Washington interests in Venezuela is in free fall like never before. Not even the political analysts critical to the government of President Nicolas Maduro endorse what they consider the worst mistake of a group that wanted to play politics. Donald Trump's experiment with Juan Guaidó clearly failed.
They turned the National Assembly into what it is today, a debris of what could have been, all because they intended to overcome the government from the legislative branch, a move that the government was not going to allow, and today we are seeing the last breath of this absurd illusion that started last year with the self-proclamation of Deputy Guaidó as President of the Galaxy, President of the National Assembly, interim President of Venezuela, and of course, that was too eroded at its base, such an absurd politics that only survived with the support of the United States.
Pacto unitario, de la necesidad de la unión.
Guaidó's last call to join him in a consultation to abstain divided the opposition bench even more.
Nosotros no podemos seguir jugando a ser gobierno en Internet.
The 2-time presidential candidate Enrique Capriles Radonsky told Guaidó in a letter, "There's nothing more powerful than telling the truth, and as political leaders, we must put our feet on the ground and not continue feeding these fantasies." Capriles is one of the opposition figures that agreed to be part of the parliamentary elections.
Here it is not about going through a process that legitimates Maduro. False. This is about what the Constitution establishes, and it says that here is an election. What will we do with it? I told him, what do we do with that process? We are the ones that will lose legitimacy, as the SUR said, but actually there is no alternative plan.
The most radical opposition figure, Maria Corina Machado, also gave her back to Guaidó, However, and contrary to Enrique Capriles, continues to support Guaido's U.S. invasion proposal to overthrow President Nicolás Maduro.
The interim president has 120 days remaining to do what he has not done in 17 months. There is no more time for any consult.
The United States immediately reacted to the disobedience of its virtual mandate in Venezuela.
It seems to me that Maria Corina is calling for some kind of magical plan that will solve all the problems, that will bring out the solution. Foreigners who intervene, the task is very difficult, but it doesn't make it easier. When the leaders of the opposition say, I don't want to do the job, I want a magical rescue.
And this time, the foreign interference and scolding was not welcomed by the representatives of Washington in Venezuela's politics.
You feel scolded, Maria Corina. With this, that story has said first and then Abrams. No foreign diplomat scolds me.
Asumir formalmente las competencias.
The truth is that this adventure that began in 2019 with the self-proclamation of Guaidó as the alleged president has its days numbered. Trump is trapped in a failed policy. He's running out of time because the Venezuelan parliamentary elections are happening soon. The European Union seems to be distancing itself from the United States strategy after the release of 110 political prisoners who participated in violent actions in Venezuela. Trump has the urgency of the polls in which he is seeking re-election on November 3rd in the United States. And although he's trapped in a failed approach, he keeps betting on Guaidó.
What happens is that the United States obviously cannot say we were wrong, and now we have to keep him there and watch how when he loses leverage they try to push him up again until the electoral process ends his career.
The history of a forecast death, but that left deep damages in Venezuela, has a deadline, January 5, 2021, with the oath of the new parliament.
The radical opposition is going to disappear. The parliamentary elections are coming. A new National Assembly will be in place, and that is going to be the political system. This will be the new parties, a relationship with the government that we all expect to be legitimate, a situation in which you can make all the positions, but with the limits of the constitutional rule, and the other things will remain for the Venezuelan political folklore, the stories of Fifi, La Sayona, or the Ball of Fire, and all those tales of llaneros like the one in which there was a group of boys that had the world in his hands and they lost it because they didn't understand what they were dealing with.
The inclusion of the radical opposition candidates just hours before the closing of the registration deepens the division between those who bet on the political solution and Guaidó, removes a violent agenda and opens the way to the political dialogue in the country.
TeleSUR, Caracas, Venezuela.
In Brazil, at least 4 indigenous people from the Chiquitano community were killed at the border with Bolivia. Local authorities in San Jose on the Bolivian side of the border filed a complaint to the government of Mato Grosso state in Brazil due to a wave of violence against indigenous communities in the region. Authorities reported that the victims' bodies showed signs of torture. Residents of San Jose have warned of the incursion of Brazilian nationals into their territory and asked for the murders to be clarified. The Office of the Attorney General of Colombia announced on Thursday that prosecutor Gabriel Jaimes will head the investigation into alleged bribery and procedural fraud committed by former President Álvaro Uribe. The Attorney General's office noted that the prosecutor was appointed on the basis of his broad experience in high-profile cases and would assume the case with independence and autonomy. The announcement was made public shortly after the case against Uribe was transferred from the Supreme Court of Justice to Attorney General Francisco Barbosa's office. The accusations against the far-right politician were made by Senator Ivan Cepeda in 2014. The court previously ordered that Uribe remain under house arrest pending trial. Argentina registered a new daily record for COVID-19 infections this Thursday at over 12,000 new cases. The Ministry of Health reported that the total tally had surpassed 451,000 confirmed cases since the outbreak of the epidemic. Meanwhile, the death toll stands at over 9,400. Health authorities warned of the problems the health system and its workers are facing amid the spike in cases, noting that over 2,300 COVID-19 patients are being treated in intensive care units, which are currently at 61.1% capacity, while in the Buenos Aires metropolitan area, ICU units are at 68.2% capacity. Trinidad and Tobago's health ministry reported 64 new coronavirus cases on Thursday and a further 46 this Friday, pushing the total past 2,000. According to official figures, over 24,000 COVID-19 tests have been conducted in the country. A total of 1,293 cases are currently active, while 707 people have recovered from the virus. Meanwhile, one new fatality was confirmed this Friday, taking the death toll to 30. Jamaican Prime Minister Andrew Holness and his ruling Jamaica Labour Party secured a second term in office in the general elections held on Thursday. Earlier in the day, People's National Party President Peter Phillips, who was standing against Holness, announced he would retire from politics and step down from his post if his party lost the election. According to the results, the Labour Party secured 49 of the 63 seats up for grabs in the House of Representatives, representing an increase of 16 seats, while the People's National Party secured 14. A total of 139 candidates stood in the election, which was called by Holness just 3 weeks ago and in the midst of the coronavirus pandemic. The mayor of Rochester in the US city of New York, Lovely Warren, announced she was suspending the officers involved in the suffocation of Daniel Prude, a black man who died 7 days after being hooded and pinned to the ground by police, sparking anger and protests. The mayor also urged the Attorney General to complete the investigation into the case.
That is why I am suspending the officers in question today against the advice of counsel. And I urge the Attorney General to complete her investigation. I understand that the union may sue the city for this. They shall feel free to do so. Actually, I've been sued 4 times from actions that I have taken against racist acts that I believe.
A new report details multiple instances of President Donald Trump making offensive remarks about members of the US military who've been captured or killed, describing them as losers and suckers. According to the revelations published by The Atlantic magazine, on cancelling a visit to the Eisenhower American Cemetery near Paris in 2018, where American troops killed during the First World War are buried, Trump privately said, "Why should I go to that cemetery? It's filled with losers." A senior Defense Department official with her first-hand knowledge of the events and a senior US Marine Corps officer who was told about Trump's comments confirmed some of the remarks to the Associated Press. The Atlantic also referred to Trump saying that former President George H.W. Bush was a loser because he was shot down by the Japanese as a Navy pilot in World War II. The revelations could undermine Trump's badly needed support in the military community for his re-election campaign. World Health Organization spokesperson Margaret Harris has noted that she does not expect widespread immunization against the novel coronavirus until mid-2021, despite the growing expectations that a vaccine could be released within weeks.
Not only are we seeing a lot of different vaccines, we need to compare them head to head to see which one is really offering the best protection and the greatest safety levels as well. And so that's one of the important things WHO is doing. We've got a solidarity vaccine trial, and we are wanting to see all the data for all the different vaccines now being trialed in people compared with each other so that we've got a clear idea which ones are offering greatest protection. The good news is the manufacturers are already putting bets on which one's likely to be the vaccine, and they're already working out how they can scale up production of vaccines once we know which ones are the ones we will roll out. So that's happening in parallel, which is incredibly exciting and really shows enormous commitment around the world again by all the different partners to get this happening.
The European Commission President has stressed that no European Union citizen should be denied entry into another EU country in an effort to establish a common approach by all EU states to the free movement of people within the bloc in the midst of the ongoing coronavirus pandemic.
Today, the Commission is proposing a common approach on any measures restricting free movement to our member states. First, we are proposing a common color code. Citizens need to be able to clearly identify the risk areas across Europe. Our agency, ECDC, will issue every week an updated map based on the information that national governments provide. On this map, every region and country would be green, orange, or red, depending on the epidemiological situation. Second, we also propose a common approach to the restrictions that are introduced for travelers that come from red zones. We believe that no EU citizen should be denied entry to another EU country. Instead, we recommend governments to use testing or quarantine. Testing should be the preferred option to make it easier for people to travel.
The Chinese Foreign Ministry has expressed confidence that renowned Chinese respiratory disease expert Xiong Nangshan will contribute to the global battle against the COVID-19 pandemic after his nomination as a member of a World Health Organization expert group.
Academic Xiong Nangshan is an authorized medical advisor in China, specializing in the prevention and control of serious infectious diseases and owns a high prestige in the field. We believe that his professionalism as well as his rich experience will be helpful, and he will make positive contributions to the work of the expert group convened by the WHO. As the COVID-19 still spreads around the world, responding to the pandemic remains the first priority of all nations. Therefore, countries and regions around the world should make concerted efforts and allow the WHO to play its central coordinating role in dealing with the pandemic.
The President of Cyprus announced Turkey's aggressiveness on Friday and called for talks to resolve the ongoing dispute over maritime borders and gas drilling rights, warning that spiralling Mediterranean tensions risk destabilizing the entire region.
Turkey is acting in a provocative way in Cyprus, in all the area actually, putting the stability and security of the whole region at risk. As I told you, in particular, Turkey's continued illegal drilling operations within Cyprus' exclusive economic zone have led to an intense militarization of our neighborhood. I would like to say that it is not our aim, the sanctions. Our aim is to see that through a dialogue we can reach a settlement which will be absolutely compatible with what the international law is saying. And so dialogue is the most and best way. But at the same time, they have to realize that they have to be abided by the international law, not to interpret the international law according to their own expansionism.
Lebanese emergency crews searched the rubble for a possible survivor in Beirut this Friday after the detection of a pulse drew crowds hopeful of a miracle 1 month on from the devastating explosion in the city's port. A specialist sensor device detected a pulse beneath a levelled building on Thursday near the port of Beirut, raising hopes that a survivor could be found more than 4 weeks after the disaster that killed at least 191 people and injured more than 6,500. 1 month on, 7 people are still listed as missing in the city. A spokesperson for the UN Refugee Agency has noted that more than 24,000 people have fled their homes in the past month due to renewed violence in the Democratic Republic of Congo, as clashes between two communities over mineral and timber resources worsened throughout August. The agency reported that violence in the south-central region of the country forced 1.4 million people to flee in 2017, and it's concerned that renewed tensions could trigger another wave of mass displacement.
The newly displaced report killings, rape, torture, looting, and burning of the homes in the recent weeks. Dozens of people have arrived with injuries. There are many children, women, and elderly among the newly displaced. In an ongoing relief effort, TeleSUR has so far distributed items including plastic sheetings, blankets, soap, cooking kits to more than 4,000 people. Thousands have also received shelter kits and cash assistance to buy food to meet their most urgent needs.
The South African Health Ministry reported over 2,400 new coronavirus cases on Thursday, pushing the total past 633,000. According to the latest data, almost 555,000 people have recovered from the virus across South Africa. Meanwhile, the COVID-19 death toll stands at over 14,500, following the confirmation of 174 fatalities on Thursday. South Africa continues to be the hardest hit country in the African continent and ranks 7th worldwide. In Nigeria, at least 10 soldiers were killed following an attack by the Boko Haram terrorist group. Local media informed that the soldiers were caught off guard by Boko Haram fighters, and in addition to the dead, several soldiers were wounded. Meanwhile, the Boko Haram forces seized 2 army vehicles. The Boko Haram terrorist organization has been conducting attacks in northeastern Nigeria since 2011, and the conflict has displaced millions of people in the region. And we've come to the end of this news brief, but remember you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. For TeleSUR English, I'm Katrina Goss, and thank you for watching.